Alright, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to do an update on one of my older videos, basically all the UI, graphical settings, and everything else. And the reason why I wanted to do this was because probably after the holidays, some of you guys either got upgrades to your computer or you're new to the game. And there's a lot of settings that I think are important to look at and maybe turn off or on. And so as a person who has basically done everything in the game, I wanted to share some tips on how I improved my FPS. And there's a lot of things I want to talk about just in general, whether you're a content creator or you just play this game for fun. So yeah, this is especially important for all of you who are new to the game, simply because, you know, by default, let's say you first log into the game, first day, all the settings are on, and I guarantee you, you do not need most of them. So with that said, I'm going to show you what I have and explain why I have them. So no matter if you have an Intel, an AMD, or if you use an NVIDIA graphics card or anything else, here are some tips that I can give you to improve your FPS and just make your game look a lot nicer. So a lot of people have also asked me, it's like, oh, what settings do you have? It looks nice and all this stuff. And well, here it is. So anyway, keep in mind, I am in the middle of town right now, so that means, like, if you're in any town, FPS is down. But on average, I can hit, you know, roughly over 200, depending on what I have with my settings. So, with that said, the number one thing I guess we should talk about is if you are capped in FPS. Let's say you do have like 144 hertz monitor, 240 or so on, and it still says 60. If you have an NVIDIA card, just go to your main monitor and then right click. There'll be an NVIDIA control panel, and basically there'll be a global settings, and just turn VSync off and hopefully restart your game. And it in theory should fix. Make sure your monitor is not actually at 60 and above, and keep it to whatever. All right, so with that said, let's get that out of the way. Keep in mind, my settings are mostly for being a content creator, and I value a balance between making things look good, but also my performance is roughly, you know, not terrible. Because if you've ever watched another streamer or like YouTubers and they do PvP and you see their computer and they have like a really good computer, but they're playing like RuneScape potato settings, the answer is because FPS in this game is actually better and more important. So like most games usually just play in ultra, whatever, right? But in MMOs and PvP, it works a little bit differently. So you know the whole meme of FPS equals DPS? That's more or less true in this game, because there's actually tests and stuff of like higher FPS means you can get your combo off slightly faster than, you know, if you had lower. But anyway, with that said, with that in mind, I do play on high and very high. I used to play in remastered. You could watch some of my older videos on that, and I just think remastered is a little too bright for me. And I know you can tweak everything, but I don't know. I just like this one the way it is. And so yeah, trust me, I've tweaked my settings a lot over the 8 years. And you guys may be wondering, what is ultra mode? It tells you right there, but it's not intended for, like, you know, PvPing or grinding, mostly for, you know, screenshots. And then, you know, like, let's say you're trying to make a montage or something. It's for that, but not really for, you know, anything too intensive. So with that said, I keep mine on high and very high. I've thought about going like the lowest for PvP, but then I was just like, man, I play BDO because it looks nice. And I've always said that, you know, graphics aren't necessarily the important thing, but when you've played other games and then you play BDO actually looks like it's a really nice game. So yeah, I have a balance between performance and also, you know, not looking like a potato. So with that said, anti-aliasing by default, you should be on FXAA. If it's not, change it to FXAA. TAA just does not look good. It's too grainy. And, you know, no anti-aliasing, probably okay as well, but I think FXAA just looks the nicest. Display shadows more realistically, that's an FPS drop. If you're doing this for screenshot purposes, definitely a good one, but for your everyday performance, let's say you're grinding, PvPing, and whatnot, it's probably better to turn it off. Display filter, clarity, being able to see things more clearly, always nice. It doesn't impact your FPS as much. Far away objects, I guess that is actually dependent on like how good your graphics card is and everything. So like you see, for example, you see this mountain right here, right? If it's not on far away, it'll just look like a mountain without textures or trees on it. So is it important? No, but I think it does have some nice aesthetics to it that I think it is worth it overall. Depth of field is if you take a screenshot and it looks like that, it blurs the background. Like it's really just more for screenshots. Turn it off and then you'll have everything clearly. Far away NPCs. Now, I actually thought this was like something that I would want because, you know, you want to see things further. But what this actually means is, you know, the NPCs that are irrelevant, that are just like walking around in town and everything. Yeah, those are the irrelevant ones. You don't need to see them. And like it does improve your FPS in towns and stuff if you have it off. So it's one of those things where I've played with this off for years. I have never missed an important NPC. NPCs that are relevant, like quest givers and everything, will always still be on. Hit effect. This is important. Show blinking effect when your character is attacked. If it prevents you from dying one way or the other, that's good. Reduce snow buildup is literally 1 month of the year when it's winter and it's snowing. I guess it depends how much you sit in town, and basically when it's snowing, you could probably see some videos of it from my other years of playing. The snow builds up. We're not in that point yet, but up to you. Next, we have optimization. Auto frame optimization. This is more for people who either do intensive stuff like PvPing or, you know, stuff where, like, let's say you don't have a high-end computer and you want to optimize it for certain things, then you could turn it on. But if you're good enough and you have a good enough computer and you don't need it, then you might as well just turn it off. It's not really that important. But if you do play it with it on, you could change the FPS auto frame optimization. It should always be the highest number you can. Upscaling. I actually used to play with this quite often, and back in the day, I would have the AMD Fidelity FX. I actually do right now currently have an AMD processor, but before I had Intel. And by having the AMD Fidelity FX on it, you actually just gave me more problems. So an example would be when the Magnus came out, like the Magnus Well and Quest things. If you were to jump down there and you had the super resolution on, everything would be beyond bright and you could see it in my older videos. But once I turned it to not applied, then it literally fixed all the problems that I had with it. Do I think it's bad overall outside of Magnus? No, I think it's fine. But that one thing bothered me enough to just keep it not applied. And yeah, so it really depends. Do you even have an AMD card? If not, you might as well just keep it not applied. If you do, this might be better. So low power option. I personally use this when I'm recording because, once again, got to balance a little bit. But if you were just playing normally, turn it off. Improves the game performance by using more of your computer resources. So for me, like, I have a recording program on. You guys probably have Discord going as well, talking to your friends and everything, probably watching a video in the background, watching a streamer or something. So, you know, like, depending on what you're doing, turn this on and off. For me, it doesn't really make a difference. My FPS does go up, but it's not enough to the point where I'm just like, oh, I actually need it. But if I was just playing or doing something, I would turn this off. Hit detection. Obviously, being able to see what kind of hits you're doing, always important. Turn this on. It should be on by default. If it's not, turn it on. Same with the misses. If you actually care about your PvE or PvP, this is important to keep on. Effect optimization, you could prioritize like graphical or performance. Generally, performance is preferred unless you're doing like RP or taking screenshots and all that stuff. So either way, it doesn't really matter if you have a decent enough computer, just turn it off. Character optimization, adjust how far you're away from others. Once again, personal preference. Hide other adventures. So this doesn't exactly work as you might think it does. So for example, I have hide other adventures on, right? Yet I can still see them. So there's a thing you could do. It's I believe Shift F5 by default. And the way it works is, like, let's say you're going to a world boss. Garmoth is the best example. When there's more than X amount of people in an area, it'll hide everyone. That way your FPS goes up and you don't see the other people. They're still there. It just hides them. So it only works when there's like more than a certain number of people in an area, and otherwise that's about it. Camera performance. This is basically field of view. Let me just show you. Field of view low, field of view high. This is an MMO. You want to see more, like straight up. If you could put this past 100 by default without tweaking any settings, I would absolutely put it at the highest you can. But 100 is the max, and yeah, you should all have it at 100, even if you are a console player, especially if you're a console player. Overall camera effect. So this one is a little bit more personal preference, but the number one rule of if you are a BDO content creator, streamer or not, you want this at 0. You want to know why? Because if you like swing and do weird effects, then it's gonna be weird. So either way, I have this at 0. Workers and pets, personal preference, irrelevant. So another thing that's weird is under performance and display, we see a lot of the same things over and over again. So we're gonna have duplicate settings, but we'll more or less talk about it. Full screen has always been better than windowed full screen, simply because if you don't know how to tweak your settings and all that stuff, full screen will uncap your FPS, so you should never have problems with that. I personally play in full screen windowed since like I'm recording and I have to tab out a lot, and I just want my like cursor to be able to go out without me having to tab. But if you are just normally playing, full screen is probably better. Either that or full screen windowed. You should probably never play game window, but full screen or window, both are good. Play settings of whatever. UI scale. So for example, if you have a, anything higher than a 1080 monitor, you could adjust the scale. But I've tested a lot of this because you know how if you play on a 4K monitor, sometimes your skills at the bottom, they look so small. You want to have to adjust the UI scale for that, but they get blurry the bigger it is. So honestly, no matter what kind of resolution you're playing at, 100 is probably, just keep it at default, don't touch it, and then, yeah. So crop mode. Unfortunately, the only way to show you guys this one would be restarting the game, but have you ever seen any streamer where they have like black bars at the top or anything? It actually is pretty helpful, because if you like, the more black bars you have, the higher your FPS. And then if you see like this way, you could actually see a further distance. So for example, you see, like, I could see barely this little icon right here. If you were to put black bars, you would see further, like widescreen more or less. And so I do think it is pretty nice, but one, I value graphical things. I don't want to see black bars when I'm playing a game and all that stuff. Yes, performance is better, but also everything is aesthetic as well to me. So I think crop mode is something you should play with. Do you care about the black bars on the side? If yes, then don't use it. If you don't care and all you care about is performance, play around and mess around with it. So display quality, all of these are basically the same that we talked about before. Nothing out of the ordinary here. One thing about effects that is actually really nice is in the photo filter. There's a lot of different things you can mess around with. So for example, if you do vibrance, this is what I have. And if you mess around with like all of this, you can see the different tints and everything. I personally think non-contrast is the nice, but also vibrance is the one I play on. So for anyone wondering, I do believe vibrance is the default or none. So I think this looks the most realistic and nicest. So let's mess around with that. Gamma and contrast, brightness, darkness, effect opacity. The best way to see what you can do is, for example, you see these tier 10 horses right here, right? You see how they have an aura around them? If you were to lower this, look at the like the snow effect around it, right? At the lowest, chances are you won't be able to see the snow effect. So see how it's gone right there at 30, and then at 100 you could see all the cool effects with it, right? Honestly, the more is better, but like if I were to give you a realistic thing, as someone who has played on this game on a laptop, I've played it on console, I've also played it on a high-end computer, at very minimum you kind of want to have like, I would say roughly 60 at minimum to have a relatively good looking game and performance. Obviously higher is better, but I would recommend at least 60 in my opinion. Intensity of focus effects during combat. Yeah, this is like, I think this is like when things zoom in and or equivalent to like screen shake and stuff. One thing that BDO does have that a lot of other MMOs don't is a color vision aid, and I am not a good person to tell you what that actually means because I wouldn't be able to tell you. However, what I have seen, and from someone who doesn't use a color aid, from what I've seen other people have, is, you know, you see how this black spirit thing is glowing right here, right? For me, it looks red, but if you have it on something else, it'll probably be like black or blue. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what the difference is, but it's just a different color of like visual effects. But I'm glad to see that they have color vision options for everyone who needs it. I think more games should have it, and it should just be like a default option in most games. Camera vision range, if you want like higher field of view for your screenshots and all this stuff, and all this stuff is always good. That's good. Personal preference. Screenshots, also personal preference. But just a little bit about this. Which monitor do you have? Do you have 4K or 8K? Obviously, higher number, better resolution. PNG is better than these other two, and everything else, personal preference. So these are the volume and audio settings that I use. So whatever you hear in game is like from this video is what I have. So once again, this is what I've been using for years, and if it's too loud or too quiet, this is just what I have. Okay, so combat music on, NPC voice language, whatever language you care about, and overall volume is, this is what I have. Once again, all personal preference, but there are a few things I want to talk about. Sometimes, you know, in game, like if you do stuff in the morning light, more or less, there are more ambient sounds and like weird effects that are still on, even if these are off. And when I'm not recording, I generally have all sounds off because I'm like watching a stream or a podcast when I'm playing or like grinding. So generally I don't have sound on, but this is what I have. Voices, even though it's at 0, sometimes I hear voices that sound like I'm crazy. But like if you've ever seen me do some videos and I have the sound off, Sometimes you still hear voices go through. It's kind of weird, but I'm not weird. I can assure you that. Anyway, fairy volume. I would honestly recommend keeping this off and at 0, because sometimes if you leave it on, like let's say you're just doing whatever you're doing, right? Sometimes your fairy will say something and you're just like, what is that noise? So it took me a while to realize that was my fairy and just talking. And I'm like, dude, is my game haunted? No, that's just your fairy. So anyway, with that said, and it's not even something that like happens, you know, at a set time, like every minute it'll say something. Sometimes it could be like 5 minutes, sometimes it could be 30 seconds, and it's just weird. But anyway, here's the important part. Okay, so quality of life. When in doubt, turn everything off. Same with all of these settings. Turn everything off until you think you need it. So, aim assistance. I personally keep mine off because I'm not sure about other classes, but at least for Dark Knight, it's better to just aim directly versus just sometimes it'll curve your attack and it'll hit. Let's say there's 2 enemies over here and then 1 enemy over here. With aim assistance, sometimes it might just target the 1 enemy versus 2. So being in full control of where you're aiming is a lot better. Trust me, I've played with both of them on and off for years and have done a lot of testing with it. So off will generally be better, assuming you know what you're doing. I also think this might be better if you like play with a controller. So you know how if you've ever played an FPS game, Call of Duty, so on, if you're playing with a controller, you know how it has like auto aim and everything. It might be better for that. But if you're playing with keyboard and mouse, I'd recommend turning it off. Combat assistance is basically, it tells you how to like what the key binds or skills are. Separatable quick slots. You should have this one on by default because it allows you to have more than 1 bar. So if you're new to the game and you only have like 1 bar of skills, a separatable quick slots will allow you to do this, like turn on everything and then you can rearrange everything. So this is how I set mine up. And in case you guys were wondering what my UI looks like, this is what it looks like. All right, so let's see what other things. Screensaver, once again, depends on your monitor. Will it burn through your monitor and leave an image? If so, turn it on. If you don't, and you just actually turn off your monitor when you're AFK, it doesn't matter. Auto call mount after quest complete. It doesn't matter. Do you have it on or off? Do you have a horse whistle? If so, this whole thing is irrelevant. All right, show and hide. Once again, all of these are personal preference. So view character name, all of these. I personally actually have a good opinion on this one. So, you know, by default, your UI, your health bar is over here. This is stupid that it's unmovable, but if you've ever played any other RPG game in your life, chances are you are looking at the center of your screen. So like, you know how there's a crosshair right here, right? I am looking at my health bar more than anything. So I'm not looking up here at my health bar. So things I look at are, let's say my buffs are over here. My health bar is in the center and my cooldowns are down here. So to give you an actual representation, like let's say I'm grinding, right? Where am I looking? I'm looking at the center, buff timers, and down here, and then all the enemies are generally in the center of your screen. So that's a realistic thing. All of these, once again, personal preference. Do you want it on or off? I personally hide pets. Like, it doesn't matter. Hide fairy. You definitely want to turn off other people's campsites. Even if you like having the pets and fairy, cool. No big deal. But hiding others' campsites will make your game a lot, a lot nicer. Okay, so custom HP bar. What does that mean? So this is one of those things where if you have like a separate thing right here, right? So it doesn't actually mean that for the custom. Here's how you change it. It's weird. There's the custom one option right here. This is probably better, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is how I used to play the game, because this is the default one they had when the game first came out. So I'm more used to it. Plus you can actually move this health bar. So I personally think the old UI is a lot nicer. However, more useful and practical, versus the new one looks nicer. So yeah, you know how I said I look at the center of my screen at the skills and everything. Generally the old HP bar, it's honestly just more useful. I wish that you could move the HP bar from here to just be able to move it around. Why they don't let you mess with all these, who knows? Final Fantasy lets you do it. Anyway, with that said, yeah, all of these, keep them on. You don't need this one. But all of these, no matter if you're a PvPer, PvEer, you kind of want all of these on, just so keep that in mind. Alerts. Okay, so if this is your first time playing the game, and let's say you just got out of the tutorial, right? And you see all these dumb settings on, and you're like, this person is selling this item for X amount of silver. Someone breeded a tier 10 horse or something. Yeah, no one cares. Even so this is unironically how I play. I turned all of these off, and if you want to see something, you could turn it on. However, the only things I think might be important are alerts for Central Market, notifications, like it'll come down here. So for example, I don't know, if an item that you bought or sold is listed, it'll pop up at the bottom, and that might be useful depending on how contested your item is. But aside from that, just turn all of these off. Zone change is actually a good one. Fitness level, I actually don't really care either, but if you're a PvPer, you might want to turn these on. And alerts, Central Market pre-orders, that one's a nice one to have. But yeah, all of these kind of irrelevant, so I actually play with a lot of these off, by the way. World map. Okay, so let me show you. If you've ever seen an old tutorial video on YouTube, not even from me, but just like anyone else, and you look at it and you're like, why does my map look different than someone else's? You know why? Because some people have like the settings at a different angle, so it looks like this, and then they're zoomed in at like a 45-degree angle and in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, no, dude, like that's weird. No one understands. So I just like, this is the default. I keep it at default. And if I'm trying to show someone where something is, I'll just zoom in. I'm not turning my camera. It just looks weird. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah, default angle. Stop changing things. I'm glad they have the option, but if you're trying to make a tutorial video, just keep it at the default, because that's what most people are going to see. Region, once again, I don't think anyone cares. In case you guys are wondering what all these were, I personally have just had mine on the summer season for like 4 years straight. Yeah, it looks like that. Just pick the one you think is the nicest. Everything else, it's really personal preference. I also do think the guide arrows is probably more useful than anything else, though. I would probably recommend the guide arrows over like the other things, but once again, personal preference. This one is kind of important if you are navigating in the ocean. Let's say you are sailing and then you just got your first boat and you don't know what to do. What this essentially means is, do you want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible? Or do you want to get from point A to point B without getting potentially stuck on a rock or something? So if you're on land, they generally do a good job at more or less removing stupid obstacles in the road. However, with the water, it's a little bit different because there's more people who do land content than ocean. So smooth would be, for the most part, like it'll take you there. It might just be a little bit slower. But if you're like semi AFK and you're just looking at your second monitor, you could probably do exact. But if you're like AFK for like 10 minutes at a time or more, then you probably want smooth. And all of these, personal preference. So yeah, that's a lot of that. And hotkeys are literally just what keybinds you have. So with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you guys learned some stuff. I explained all the settings I have. I think the most important things you guys should probably mess around with is probably messing with all of this thing. So you could probably get away with medium still looking okay-ish. Just know remastered is actually bright, and you know, whatever your PC can handle, I guess. But yeah, just whatever you do, just don't play ultra like on a regular. And I know some people are like, oh, I could play ultra. Being able to do things and being able to do things efficiently is two different things. So yeah, I value FPS more and all that stuff. So anyway, with that said, that's all from me today. Just want to say thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys had a happy holidays, Merry Christmas and everything. Hopefully we'll still be around New Year's for more stuff, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.